Hey gang, Rodin here. Welcome on back to the Cade and another episode of Suckerpunch Sunday. And for this week, we're going to go back 32 years now, which every time I mention that, it makes me feel really old now, to 1993, and a game for the Super Nintendo that by all rights should have been released in the United States, but it wasn't. But if they had done so, it would have really captured a moment in time when anime was really coming on strong in the US, and this title in particular was so popular among girls and boys in the US that it would become a staple of anime conventions, anime cosplay for the better part of the next decade. I'm of course talking about Pretty Soldier Sailor Moon. Now, this game was released in Japan in August of 1993, and then was released in Spain and Europe in November of 1994. It was created by Bandai, and they helped do the production work on it. Now, the reason why I'm able to play this is because I was able to find a translated copy that somebody fan-subbed together and was able to convert it. So we're just going to go for the next half an hour or so and try it out. Now, if you're not familiar with Sailor Moon, and at this point in time you may not be, but if you're of my generation and you were in any way an anime fan, you could not get away from Sailor Moon. I mean that in a good way and a bad way. So, you get to choose from any of the 5 Sailor Soldiers. You have the eponymous Sailor Moon. I believe this is Sailor Mars. We have Sailor Jupiter, I want to believe. Sailor Mercury, and I think this is Sailor Neptune. And I have to say maybe only because I am not familiar with Sailor Moon, because during the 90s, I was one of those kids that did not watch the series, which I will get into as we go. But a lot of my friends did, and I'd be crazy if I did not take Sailor Moon for the purpose of this episode. So, Sailor Moon as a series was created in the early 90s, started as a manga, then was translated into an anime, and it was that anime that ran in Japan from 1992 to, I want to say, 1997, and there were a couple of standalone films that came out afterwards. That when it got brought over to the US and dubbed and translated, that, and I'm going to pause it right here really quick, that it truly became a phenomenon. Like, it was on Cartoon Network back when Cartoon Network was a thing. You were trying to get fan subs of it any way you could, and there are some fundamental big-time differences between the Americanized version of it and the original Japanese version of it. And I know some of the particulars around it, but, again, I was, at this point in the 90s, I was much more into science fiction anime, and I was into mech anime still, so this wasn't particularly my bag. But I want to pause really quick to give you a quick breakdown on how the controls work. So, in this game, your B button is your standard attack button, your A is jump, and then your Y button is your special attack. And you have a limited number of special attacks. As you look in the upper left-hand corner, you see the number of lives Sailor Moon has. It's 3. And then next to her, you see a bow that says 2 on it. That is the number of special attacks she has. And what she will do is she will bust out her Sailor Moon wand, cast the spell, and that will do damage to everybody on the screen. I'm not going to worry about it right now because this is the introductory level. Now, one thing I did notice that when I was trying this game out to make sure it worked is that the hitbox is actually really small for Sailor Moon, and I think for all the Sailor Soldiers. So, you gotta get up close and personal with them, and then doing that flip move is almost an automatic thing. But the first thing I noticed in playing this game is I love the vibrancy of the color of it, which you would expect from an anime of this type, because, again, if you've watched any episodes of Sailor Moon or seen any of the OVAs, it's a very colorful, vibrant series. Everything about it is designed to be very lush and very enticing for girls to want to watch, and for boys to get a little bit of fun out of it. Now, like I said, when this was released in Japan in 1992. It took a couple of years for it to get over to the States, but in the early 90s, I was part of an animation group in the Pacific Northwest called NOVA, Northern Oregon Vancouver Anime. And it was one of the first, basically, fan groups I knew of where we could get anime that had already been released in the US, or in Japan rather, but had not been released in the US. So it was where I first got my first copies of Akira there. I got Fist of the North Star there. I got a whole bunch of stuff. Hades Project Zero Rhymer, Record of Lotus War. All the great 90s anime that I have loved ever since, I got through this group. And how they got it at the time, I never really knew. But we had a pretty big archive. And one of my best friends in that group was a massive Sailor Moon fan. And he was the one who was really got the rest of the group interested in it. And he was a couple years older than I was. And it was through him that I started understanding the differences between the Americanized version and the Japanese version. Mainly in terms of, in the Japanese version, there is a little bit of what is colloquially dubbed fan service. Ooh, she got lit on fire. Not cool. Because when any of the Sailor Scouts transform from their regular human guises into the Sailor Scouts, they magically shed clothing. Let me put it that way. Now, the thing about Japanese culture, and especially when it comes to nudity, is that in anime, I can't say this for live action stuff, but as far as in anime, and this was this way for a very, very, very long time. I don't know if it's still this way now, and I'm sure people will correct me in the comments if it's not. But for the longest time, the Japanese had a pretty basic approach to anatomy as far as when their characters were not wearing clothes. Mainly, no bits were displayed. So essentially, if you were watching an anime or reading a manga and a character was sans attire, it was basically like looking at a mannequin. And that was their way of allowing their artists to at least venture into that area, but also not be so gratuitous about it that it violated social norms. Again, I don't know if it's that way anymore, and I'm sure if you are a current anime watcher or a manga reader and you've seen evidence to the contrary, let me know. I mean, I've watched some stuff, but predominantly the things that I watch are still pretty old by comparison. But even around the time that, we got, as I was chatting, this would be a good time to show off her. So this is the magic skill, since I had 4 people around me. But yeah, once the advent of hentai really broke out in the US, and that became just as popular as mainstream anime, obviously that dynamic changed considerably. Ow. I got cornered and I got put down. There we go. Now you can do a jump attack, but that throw can be helpful because you can also throw your subject into enemies on either side of you depending on the angle in which they're being thrown. But in terms of mechanics, this is just a straight beat 'em up, and I don't genuinely know enough about Sailor Moon to know what her overall abilities are outside of her ability to use her Sailor Wand to do different things. And it looks like we've hit a boss for the first time. And she's hitting me considerably. Now she's out of the way. Oh, I can throw her. I've already used one continue. I don't know how many continues we get in this game. But the Bandai and Nintendo didn't think it would be a good idea to release this game in the US in the 90s when Sailor Moon was one of the top anime that was on TV. Truly staggers me. Now this guy he's known as, I think it's Tuxedo Mask. And he's basically the love interest for Sailor Moon in the franchise. It looks like we get a grade. We got a C. So now we move on to what looks like the next level. Fantasy Attraction. So there, I just got a special attack back. Now, because the mechanics are so basic, in a lot of ways, that's a good thing, because I don't have to spend a whole lot of time doing anything other than dodging and hitting and making sure I don't get hit. Although, if these guys would quit rolling for 2 bloomin' seconds... But in my 20s, I worked for a now defunct movie company called Suncoast Motion Picture Company. They were basically you went to a mall and you saw them here. Instead of going to a Blockbuster or a Hollywood Video and renting stuff, I was just like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to use the special attack and get those guys out of the way, because otherwise I'm going to be spending all day dealing with them. Not more of them. But the amount of people who came in wanting copies of either Sailor Moon or Dragon Ball Z was relentless back then. And you have to remember, in the 90s, this was pre-series like Cowboy Bebop. It was pre-Titan, Attack on Titan. You know, the amount of stuff that was coming in was actually a couple of years old by comparison. We weren't getting stuff fresh off the presses coming out of Japan back in the 90s. It was a chance for the anime companies to be able to utilize their catalog and really take advantage of the vast amount of stuff they had available at the time. Send that over. So we were still coming out of stuff like Ranma 1/2 and Bubblegum Crisis, and I mean, Akira had been around for a couple years. And to that point, anime and manga had been something that had been considered, by and large, something to be enjoyed predominantly by boys. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that was the understanding as we had it here in the States, because there weren't series like Sailor Moon out there. It was all the stuff that I grew up watching, all the Super Robot anime and Gundam and Legend of the Galactic Heroes and Macross and stuff like that. And that's not to suggest that it by any degree that girls can't enjoy that sort of anime either, but it was stuff that was initially created with an aim of tailoring to boys and men. And then Sailor Moon came along and changed it considerably. And now, I mean, it is... I would say we are as close to 50-50, I think, in terms of the way anime is marketed and what is produced nowadays and what is available to fans of the medium. And that's a great thing. I mean, I'm not damning it with any measure of small praise. I think it's a really good thing that there's stuff for everybody in anime. You know, my sister is as big an anime fan as I am, and while she even wasn't a Sailor Moon fan, she loved watching stuff like Bubblegum Crisis, which was a sci-fi anime that was centered around, similar to Sailor Moon, 4 female characters. The only difference between them and the Saiyan Scouts, or the Sailor Scouts, is the Night Sabers in Bubblegum Crisis are wearing armored tactical battle suits a la Iron Man. So, like most of these type of fighting games, to save on... I fell in the drink. To save on memory space, they simply recycled a lot of the character art that they've already designed. Get wet. And you. Alright, looks like we get to carry... Well, not yet. Alright. Keep carrying on through this Amazonian swamp. Knock them in the drink. Knock them in the drink. So just, when in doubt, kick them off the boat. Or flip them off the boat. That'll work. Yeah, we're going. Except I can't go any further because I'm right here at the end of the boat. There's nowhere for me to go. There we go. Pick up the rose. And like most games at this time, there's items that you can pick up. But unlike in most side-scrolling beat-em-up games, Sailor Moon don't need no weapons. She has the power of her staggering cuteness. Whoop, now we got this guy. Ouch. Ow. Wow. That little hyper fist action of his is not cool. And he does a Guile style flash kick. And I don't have any special attacks available. Oof. Already put me down. Alright, if I can keep him cornered, there we go. So how do we do on this one? Took 503 seconds, took 582 points of damage, 44,000 style points. We got a grade of a C. Crystal Tokyo, Stage 3. Whoops, I didn't mean to do it twice. I meant to jump and attack. Because she's going to start doing that. The only thing I can think of as to why Bandai never released this in the States is probably the same reason why they never released Super Robot Wars in the States, which was at the time they were worried about licensing rights and protecting the IP, which I get. But be that as it may, if you are looking to get interest, ooh, she gets torched in an IP, and you've got a means to reach a considerable amount of potential customers, and other people are going to be super into it because they've already been exposed to the anime, and they're of the ooh, zap, and they're up. She zapped twice. But as I was saying, you know, the amount of kids who completely flipped for Sailor Moon in the mid-90s, and even going into the early 2000s, as it was getting repeats on Cartoon Network and Toonami and stuff like that. It was on syndicated TV for a while. This could have been a massive hit in the States at that time. And it would have been a game that, again, as this was a series that was marketed more towards girls than boys, it would have given something for girls to be able to play, which, all told, we'll do one more because we got about 5 minutes. You know, as you can see, it's not a hyper-violent game. It's very cartoonish. You know, it's based on an anime. It's designed to be cartoony, but, you know, this is the sort of game that you can let a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old girl play. Even younger than that, and it won't be anything super repugnant. I mean, this is no worse than playing a Super Mario game. Honestly, it's because it's not designed to portray anything other than just Sailor Moon kicking butt. Except when this guy continues to keep rolling around. Go away. Hate those guys. Oh, more shocker ladies. Ah, zapped. I do find it also amusing that she kind of throws a tantrum when she dies, for lack of a better term. All right. Ah, more of these guys. I do like that she's got that kind of Chun-Li flip. Except I still don't have any special attacks. So I'm getting bowled over by these guys. Yeah, well, and that's it, and that's game over anyway. So we get 3 continues, it looks like, to try and get through the entire game. But that, everybody, is Sailor Moon from 1993 for the Sega, or not for the Sega, Super Nintendo, although it did come out on the Mega Drive as well, but it was never released in the US on either console. So, question 1, is it a good game? Honestly, it's not bad. It's very simple, and a simple game doesn't equate to being a bad game. Because it is a simple mechanic, you don't have to do a lot of complex moves. It's a button-mashing, side-scrolling beat-em-up. The graphics are really well done. You know, yeah, they're a little pixelated, but again, you have to remember this is a 32-year-old game now. The fidelity and the crispness of the sprites and everything is going to be a little bit off, but still, for a mid-90s game, this is great. You know, it's really vibrant, it's really colorful. The music isn't terrible. It's not one of those that, I mean, I've got headphones on as I'm recording this, and it wasn't making my ears bleed, which I can't say that for every game that I've played on this channel. And as I said earlier, it's the sort of game that if you were from, I'd say even from like, if this was your first video game, let me put it that way. If you were 7, 8, 9, 10 years old and you hadn't played a video game before, and your parents got you a Super NES because you wanted to play a game like this, and you got this one, if this is something that you were wanting to play, then yeah, you'd be able to have quite a bit of fun with it. Is it a game they could make today? Absolutely. There's no reason why they wouldn't. The only reason that they wouldn't be able to, again, aside from the IP issues that would cause it to be have to be translated over from Japan, is that the popularity of Sailor Moon isn't as big as I understand it now. And I could be very wrong on this, so if I am, by all means, let me know in the comments. But I'm simply going by the fact that in the mid-90s, early 2000s, this was one of the top 5 anime that I am aware of available in the US that had been brought over from Japan. That sort of longevity isn't going to stay at that level for 25 years. You know, you look at other series, you look at Gundam, you look at Macross, you look at all... Cowboy Bebop even was one of the Evangelion. Stuff like that was really, really super popular in the 90s and the early aughts. People have moved on to other stuff. It's just a natural progression of things. I'm not saying those people are right or wrong. It's just the way things go. But I'm sure that there is still a very, very core fan base of people who are probably my age or within the ballpark of my age who watched Sailor Moon, got into Sailor Moon, liked Sailor Moon, and they would have loved to have played this. Especially if they were on the younger side and they were growing into video games along with anime and other stuff. So, if you've never tried it, you can download the ROM online, and I'm playing this on the SNES emulator, SNESW emulator. It's a free emulator, and there's other ones that are available that you can try as well. And give it a whirl. If you've never played it and you're a Sailor Moon fan, I would love to get your feedback on it and see what your exposure to this is. Because, again, I'm coming to this from the outside a little bit, not having watched the anime, not being as big a fan, but appreciating it for what it was, which was a very, very popular thing at that point in time as the anime boom was truly kicking off and going stratospheric here in the US. So, that is Suckerpunch Sunday for this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you've been enjoying the content, you know how to show up by now. It's 2025. I don't have to break it down for you. Be sure to tune in to Sports Saturday as well, as we are continuing with our great what-if scenario of creating the New England Patriots dynasty of the 2000s without Tom Brady. And man, we are on a roll. I expect next week we are going to get slammed back down to earth hard. Because we're taking on one of the top teams in the league in our alternate NFL universe. Also be sure to tune in, speaking of anime, to our ongoing playthrough of Super Robot Wars Alpha Gaiden for the PS1 from 2001. New episodes, of course, go up every Monday and Wednesday, and we are almost through that series. And then as a programming note, we do have our next playthrough picked out, But we are going to take a little bit of time and put some other content up on the Cade that we've been letting languish for a while before we dive into that. So as always, we encourage you to continue to watch this space. One way you can do that is by following us on social media through Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Ronan's Retrocade. Help spread the word about us as we continue to build this channel and make it bigger and better. My name is Ronan. It's been great to spend the Suckerpunch Sunday with you. Be safe, be well, happy gaming. We'll talk to you tomorrow as we transition from the world of cute that is Sailor Moon into the rough and tumble world of Super Robot Wars Alpha Gaiden. Bye.